We gather here at Out Summit every year to share experiences, build networks, and come up with strategies to overcome the challenges LGBTIQ people face in recognition and protection of our human rights. A key challenge facing our movement, one which I have heard echoed numerous times over the last couple of days, is the rising so-called anti-gender movement. This movement of predominantly right-wing forces opposes gender and LGBTIQ equality. In particular, it targets trans people. Trans people continue to be among the most vulnerable and marginalized groups in societies, facing disproportionate discrimination in education, employment, and severe barriers to accessing healthcare. In 13 countries, laws explicitly criminalize cross-dressing. In a further 37, laws on morality, vagrancy, public nuisance, and others are consistently used to target trans people. Only 15 countries allow legal gender recognition based on self-determination. There is not a single place in the world in which trans people are safe. With the rising anti-gender movement and its hate-filled rhetoric against trans people in particular, the challenge we face is mounting. According to the Trans Murder Monitoring Project, at least 350 trans people were killed in 2020, marking a 6% increase to data from 2019. In 2021, the number of those murdered increased by a further 7% to 375. These are only the known murders. The real picture is far, far more bleak. We speak of the LGBTIQ movement as if it were a given that we stand for each other. We should, but we don't. More worrying than rising murder rates is the fact that trans people are facing a backlash from within our own movement. The anti-gender movement has successfully pinned recognition of the rights of trans people as a threat to the rights of women, thus engaging corners of women's and indeed LGBT movements. Trans people have been the backbone of the movement for LGBTIQ equality since its inception. It was trans women of color who started the Stonewall riots, which led to the global Pride movement. Black trans people have also been a cornerstone of the movement for racial justice. For decades, my trans siblings and I have supported and fought for recognition of the rights of others because they affect us all, often getting no credit and remaining invisible. It pains me beyond words to see the rights of trans people not only overshadowed, but actively attacked, especially from within our own movement. Divide and conquer is a popular tactic of abusive regimes. It splinters movements and enables those in power to retain it. Don't let those who oppose all our rights divide us. We are stronger together. We need to support, uphold, and champion each other. Otherwise, none of us will achieve equality. Thank you for being here, and thank you for listening. It is now my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Gigi Chao. Gigi, she, her, is co-founder of Hong Kong Marriage Equality, a board member of Outright Action International, and the founder of Hong Kong registered charity Faith in Love Foundation, which encourages volunteerism and alleviation of poverty through scholarships, resource distribution, and emotional support for marginalized youth. Over to you, Gigi.
Hello. Thank you, Rikki. Thank you so much for your impassioned speech, and the rights of trans people and the solidarity that we share has always been something so close to my heart. And I think we need a platform for the trans movement to be in the front lines of the whole LGBTI movement. The day is the 10th of December. It is supposed to be Human Rights Day, so happy Human Rights Day, or week that we've been celebrating. Whenever we celebrate or talk of human rights, there's always several issues that always linger at the back of people's minds. But this year especially, 2 years of COVID now, 5.2 or 5.3 million deaths, a sobering number. I just want to take a little bit of time to remember a personal friend. I call him the gentle giant. Whenever someone ever needed help with anything, he or she might just ask Uncle Samson. We refer to him as Uncle Samson. And he would always put his whole weight behind it and always knew how to help and never said no. There's Samson there with his wife, Greta. Greta passed away a few years before him, and that's his whole family beaming with happiness on their 60th wedding anniversary. It's a great joyous occasion. It was a few years ago, you can notice, without the mask, but every time I saw him, he always beamed back the biggest smile that brightened up the room. I would run over to him and give him a great big hug. And inside his slim, towering frame, Uncle Samson always has the most generous and loving person, friend, and mentor that elucidated kindness. A walking example of what it means to live a respected life and giving back to society with all his heart. Now, he's a straight man, and I forgive him for that, but he was always so meticulously dressed. I remember one time in a club in Hong Kong, I saw him and I commented on how perfect his tie was. Blue silk tie with a gold collar bar beneath. I said, Samson, the dimple positions are immaculate. He grinned with this enormous sense of pride. The other gentlemen in the room shuffled their collars and glanced in the mirrors nervously, just wondering what I was talking about. They quietly tried to ask Samson, but he would say no more about it. He was just humble like that. It is through people from the older generation that we owe a lot of our achievements and where our earth is, for better or for worse. But it is stories like Samson, who's just passed away, that really reminds me of how much we need to find opportunities to connect with the older generation. A lot of the older folk who grew up or spent most of their lives when homosexuality was criminalized, and they spent most of their lives in the closet. They still have impressions about, the LGBTI community. They still have misconceptions. And it's so important that while we still have the chance, we connect with them and hold dialogues and conversations with them so that we cherish the relationships that we have while we still have them. COVID has touched the lives of probably everyone. And in Asia, more than any other place, we feel the loss of the departed. On Human Rights Day, it's a time we remember the sacrifices that our kind, our tribe has made in the name of conformity, in the name of polite fictions, in the name of not rocking the boat, in the name of sweeping things under the carpet and avoiding the elephant in the room. Well, I'm in Hong Kong right now, and the elephant in the room on Human Rights Day is always China. So I'm not one to avoid the elephant, but how should we deal with China? What should we make of what popular media say about things that are going on? What should we make about the LGBTIQ community within this vast populous country? Well, I'm a reader of law, so I always believe in going straight to the source. So hope you don't mind, but I've brought the Governance of China by Xi Jinping, and he wrote some of these speeches in 2017, so a little bit dated in terms of just what the vast things that's happened in the past 3 years. But here on page 503, let me read you a few passages. Meet the people's expectation for a better life. We should endeavor to build a world of common prosperity, free from poverty. We should endeavor to build a world that is open, inclusive, a world free from isolation. The flourishing of civilization and the progress of humanity will not be possible without enhancing common ground, openness, inclusiveness, exchanges, and mutual learning among civilizations, and agreeing to disagree. We should work together to bring down cultural barriers, reject prejudices that stand in the way of human interactions, and eliminate cultural bias that prevents people from engaging with one another. We should endeavor to build a green, clean, beautiful world. The earth is the only shared home for humanity. Well, as the co-founder of Hong Kong Marriage Equality, I couldn't have said it better myself. But, you know, we have a practice of holding leaders or elected democratic people accountable for their words or their promises. What to make of common prosperity in China? Well, in some ways, I think about it a bit like praying, right? So you put your hands together and on your knees, if you like, and you pray to the Heavenly Father, and you pray these words and then have faith that they will come true. But that's just not enough. Faith has to be manifested in action. So when you pray, you got to roll those sleeves up, strap up your boots, and go out and do the Lord's work. Am I right? I mean, we're here to make it happen. The name of this summit is called Outright Summit, Out Summit, Outright Action. And what a wonderful name it is. It's all about action. It's about making things happen. Do you believe in reincarnation? I'm agnostic on the matter myself, but I do acknowledge that it answers an important psychological question. Why? Why is this person in pain and that person in joy? Why is this person born with more and that person less? And how can I let go of this fundamental inequality of just being born different? A fact that we have absolutely no control over. I think reincarnation answers this fundamental inequality. But more importantly, it tells us that what we need are the storytellers, the narrators, the mavericks, the people that can attribute meaning to things that happen, people that can create stories, the people that can make history by recording our oral histories and things that happened to our kind. So much of LGBTI history has just been wiped off the history books as if our trans brothers and sisters never existed. I think it's time to put a stop to that. And we can each do something about it by being our own storyteller and making those stories, sharing these stories and connecting with different people that you're not used to hearing our stories. When I was 6 years old, I lived in the United States. And I remember the name of my school is called Richmond Avenue. Yeah, so Maria's showing their website now. I kind of Googled it this morning. And at Richmond Avenue, I remember there was a principal there. Can't remember her name now, but a little bit, if the next picture. Yeah, so that's Miss Shelley Williams. That's the current principal, I believe. And I guess something of that kind of character, very substantial character, but I think she wore this kind of very big pink and brown rimmed glasses, as you do when in the mid 1980s when Beastie Boys was blasting on the radio on MTV and Bon Jovi. But one time I lived in Atlantic City, and my dad, who lived in Hong Kong, traveled that horrendous 24-hour flight to New York City. And he took a limo, like a bus. He took a limo from New York City all the way to Atlantic City. And he came to visit me at my school. At that time, unbeknownst to me, because we had no cell phones back then. So a limo just kind of pulled up at our school. And I think some of the people in my classmates sort of saw this limo pulled up and they got really excited. And everyone ran to the window and said, oh look, there's a limo. Is it the president? And then this person, Chinese, quite tall man, stepped out of the limo, clad in this black shiny fur from neck down to ankle. And he was wearing kind of these, dark sunglasses. And he walked in and talked to my principal. And I would remember her being quite shocked by him. But in some ways, kudos to him. He gets to own up to his identity of being larger than life and celebrating his identity of, what we would call like an R&B music video. But back then, I guess that was his way of manifesting who he was. And I think it's the same with the community. We want to own ourselves and our own sense of identity. We want to be able to express ourselves the only way we know how. And sometimes in many countries, it's difficult. And we are told to keep quiet, keep this identity, this non-conforming identity, less visible, less loud. And again, maybe it's not fair, but maybe it's just an opportunity for us to become more complex creatures, to be able to handle opposing views and yet be okay with that. It's a much more mature view, and it's less simplistic, and it demands more of our common humanity. But I think that is what's demanded now. How we dress, how we express our identity, these are all symbols, and symbols are important. Symbols are these kind of visualizations of things that we feel inside. And it's important, when we have the trans flag, the rainbow flag, in Hong Kong marriage equality, our logo is a heart with an equal sign under a roof. When we celebrate these symbols, we want these symbols to be objects of inclusion. We want these visualizations to be something that other people can also embrace and find relevance, rather than excluding other people. And it's with that, I think my time is nearly up. It's been a great pleasure to speak at Outright Summit. It's really exciting to hear, all these really informative and big worldview topics being covered all across the world, really. And well done for making it all the way to the third day. I hope you have a great day ahead.
Thank you, Gigi. Those are really moving and powerful words. But just sort of picking up a few words that you said that I heard it's such a fabulous speech you gave a short while ago. So I heard, so today is Human Rights Day, and we need to be we need to remember that is Human Rights Day. And what does it mean to all of us, and especially us in the LGBTQI family? What does it mean? We have to, as Gigi said, there has to be inclusivity, there has to be accountability, and we also need to document these abuses that we face as a minority group in the bigger social order. So linking Gigi's speech to mine, I would just like to reiterate and to repeat that for inclusivity and for accountability, as an LGBTQ movement, we all need to stand together. We need to be inclusive. We must be accountable not only to ourselves, but to the rest of our community and the rest of the world, to show that we stand as one. And in that way, we will celebrate our humanity. With that said, this ends this session, and our next sessions will begin momentarily. You can access them via the Sessions tab on the left-hand side of your screen. I hope you will stay with us, and I wish you an informative and inspiring last Out Summit day. Thank you very much.